So it's always a great pleasure to introduce our state senator from District 17, Cheryl Kagan. And she's the vice chair of the Committee on Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs. And I don't know why they put those three important things all in the same committee.
It's more than that and different than that, but I'll talk about it.
Okay, please do.
Yeah.
She chairs the Maryland 9/11 Committee, and also she's a member of the Board of Advisors of the U.S. Election Assistance Commission. Now, she's been in the Senate since 2015, and before that, she was in the House of Delegates, also representing our district. She's a member of the Joint Committee on Open Space, Agricultural Land Preservation, and also the Joint Audit and Evaluation Committee. You wonder why I need a piece of paper, but I do. So she is also very active in the World Folk Music Association and a host for folk and great music. And she's a nationally ranked Scrabble player.
Do we have some Scrabble players in the house? Right.
Maybe you'll have some competition.
That would be fun.
Let's welcome Cheryl.
Welcome, Asbury friends. Yes, thank you. It is great to be back with you. Thank you for coming, taking an hour of your life to come and be with us. There is a lot that I want to share. I have a PowerPoint to help walk me through it, and then some other random things that I am going to talk about. But I really love being here because I love your questions. So let me start with the fact that there are a lot of people who think that being a senator or a member of the House of Delegates is a 90-day-a-year job, that we're in Annapolis from mid-January to mid-April and then we're done. We just go on vacation for 9 months. I'm here. Yesterday morning I started my day by speaking at Caring Matters, which is one of our 2 hospice organizations in Montgomery County that does such important work. And then I helped inaugurate Lon's House, which is going to house 10 men who were formerly either without housing or had been addicted or just needed an extra boost. And there's a group home in downtown Rockville, and it's beautiful. Then I had lunch with a Senate colleague and did stuff in Frederick, and then so it's all of the time. All the time. And this is the year that I pledged, since it's not an election year, I pledged to slow it down. I pledged to do a little bit less, come to fewer events. And I'm really bad at saying no to being invited to fun places to be with my buddies and my constituents on things that I care about. So let me run through this, and then I look forward to your questions. So first off, some of you may remember that in the fall of 2021, before the summer 2022 primary election, I was the first legislator outside of Baltimore City to endorse Wes Moore to be our governor. There were 11 candidates. He was at 1% in the polls. And he loves to say, oh, Senator Kagan endorsed me when I was at 1% in the polls, and that was probably a rounding error. And now he's our governor. And I just identified him as being extraordinary. And I hope, to the degree that you are paying attention to the details, and we're going to go through some of them, that you are as thrilled that he is our governor as I am. So with him in this photo is Aruna Miller, former Montgomery County member of the House of Delegates, who is our lieutenant governor. And she is terrific, former transportation engineer and so many things. So Maria got the name almost right, but my committee changed in December. And rather than Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs, because that was pronounceable as EHE or EHE, in addition to those, to Education, Health, the environment, we also had procurement, we had all alcohol bills, we have all election bills. So we jettisoned a few of those, but we picked up energy. And I have a new chair in Brian Feldman, the senator from the district next door, who had been vice chair of the committee that dealt with energy and many other issues. He is a terrific chair. We got off to a great start, and we are working on education, energy, especially with climate our climate crisis, energy and the environment go really well together. We continue to have education. We continue to have elections, which is kind of my lane, and we jettisoned health occupations and alcohol. You are not going to be able to read this, but we got a lot done this year on a lot of different issues. We had a very productive year, and I'm going to go into some of the key pieces now. Are you with us for a short bit? Do we have time to? All right. The budget is always the most important bill that we pass, and Maryland is constitutionally required to have a balanced budget. None of the craziness we see with McCarthy on the Hill, no negotiation, no brinksmanship, no near catastrophe in our world economy. We just get it done in Annapolis, and we get it done responsibly. And Governor Moore's first budget was thoughtful, built on what Hogan had, but made changes. Public safety, Maria talked about all that I've done in 911. You guys have been hearing me talk about this for 8, now 9 long years, because 3 people have died in my district when 911 failed. And Maria didn't mention that while I was in the House for 8 years, that I chose not to seek re-election, and I was out of office for 12 years, back in the community, back in the nonprofit sector, and still engaged in politics. But then 12 years later, I ran for and was elected to the Senate. I defeated the guy who succeeded me in the House, who turned out to have kind of a terrible voting record. And but I had sworn in the intervening years that if I were ever back in elective office again, that I would do something in Carl Henn's memory. And so I have invested untold hours working on 911. Maryland is now at the forefront nationally of 911, of shifting to what's called next generation 911, NG 911, and we have had to deal with, and as the Senate President says, nobody even thinks about 911 because they just know they dial the 3 digits and you're going to get police, fire, paramedics. You don't think about the details unless it doesn't work. But whether it's funding, staffing, training, cybersecurity, oversight, geographic information systems so that they can find the crisis, because your cell phone, when you call 911 from your cell phone, and landlines are always better. If you are near a landline, use your landline. But your cell phone, you know what it gives the 911 center? It doesn't give your apartment number, it doesn't give your precise location. It pings off the local cell tower. So it could be a quarter mile away, literally. And you could be, God forbid, really dealing with a crisis, and they're looking for you, driving around looking for you. And one of the people who died in my district died in Gaithersburg. He called 911 first thing in the morning, said, "I think I'm having a heart attack." And it was one of our major employers in the district, and the paramedics rushed and they went to building 1 and they searched every office of every floor in building 1, and 10 hours later they found his dead body in building 3. So geographic information, critically important, and the Federal Communications Commission has been focused on, for those of you who are ever into science or geometry or anything, there's the x-axis and the y-axis, right? But the z-axis is height. And so if you're in an office building, a hotel, a high-rise apartment building, right? You've got to be able to have the z-axis for them to find you most quickly. So that's something we're continuing to work on. There are still many, many other issues. And something I am most passionate about is our 911 specialists. And we have renamed them in law and given them better benefits and authorization for all sorts of stuff. But the courageous women and men under the headset are completely invisible unless they mess up. And then you hear about it. But again, you don't even think about it. But their training, their patience, their compassion, their calm. Someone is screaming and crying and hysterical and oh my God and da-da-da. And I will actually, are you okay with like a kind of awful story? A friend of mine who was under the headset for 28 years, not Montgomery County, another county, told the story in testimony about getting a call from a woman who had just come home and found her daughter hanging. And my friend stay calm and talk to her about trying to cut her down, trying to sever the rope. She couldn't do that. And so she coached her for holding her daughter up by her legs. And she was doing that. I can't, she's too heavy. We're moms, we're strong, we can do this, you can do this. I'm gonna stay with you, I'm on the phone, I'm here for you. I can't. The paramedics came, and the daughter lived. The daughter lived, which is not the end of the story that you expected, right? So these, and I always say women first, because they are mostly women, and they are mostly invisible. These courageous women and men under the headsets, are our first responders. And if they don't have the training and the resources, we can have the best equipment, we can have the best firefighters, the best police officers, the best paramedics, but if our first responders, our 911 specialists, are not good at their job, are not excellent at their job, grandma has a heart attack and dies, the building burns down, the house burns down, the bad guy gets away. They've got to be excellent, and ours are. So I'm really proud of our work on that. And this year I was named nationally the 911 Government Leader of the Year, and was honored. I was honored at a really nice event on Capitol Hill, and it was really, it's a thrill, but we are not done. And even though the commission that Maria mentioned has now expired, there is much more to do, and I am continuing to do it. Not enough people know about 988. I beg you, please make sure you talk to your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues, your kids, your grandkids, your nieces and nephews, whomever is in your life, who you love and care about. I spoke a few months ago to an auditorium full of students. There were over 100 students in the room, and I asked them if they knew, because I was talking about 911. So I asked, do you know what 988 is? How many of you know what 988 is? Yeah, how many students? Over 100 students in the room. How many raised their hands?
Good.
None. Zero. There was one teacher who said, maybe I kind of, might know, kind of. Please know. It's 24/7, 365, 3 digits. There's an 800 number, but nobody remembers a long 800 number. 988. It's a simple number, and it will get immediate access to a caring person who can offer counseling, or, God forbid, someone is thinking about suicide. It can offer help. In my opinion, there are still flaws in the system, but it exists. It's available now. So please help spread the word. And Maria, if that can go in the newsletter, if that can go in future things, if any of you want to tweet about it, post about it, any of you who are on social media, put it on your Facebook pages, spread the word.
Is that state or federal?
Federal. It went nationally last July. So seriously, if you've got a niece in Dubuque or a cousin in San Francisco, like, just make sure everyone knows about it. Young people especially really have been suffering with mental health, depression, and anxiety. COVID, is mostly in our rearview mirror, knock wood, but it's not done, and the lingering effects, emotionally, psychologically, are still with us, are still with a lot of people. So please, 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 if there's one thing I can ask of you, tell everyone about 988. But it's not the only thing I'm going to ask of you. But for now, let me just say that. Gun violence, we are all, I'm sure, just pulling out our hair out. If we have hair, we're going gray. Every day, we have some maniac with a weapon who's murdering people. In schools, in synagogues, in churches, at public events, at parades, at graduations, at funerals. It's insane. Maryland has passed, continues to pass, responsible legislation. We don't give 2 hoots about the NRA. We care about, if you have Second Amendment gun rights, we're not going to try to take your gun away. But if you shouldn't have one, and if you're not storing it safely and all that, we are really clear. We're taking action. election procedures. I think those of you who've heard me before know that I'm kind of the queen bee on elections. As vice chair of the committee that oversees all elections, I sponsor a lot of election bills. I think I sponsored 8 election bills last year, passed a bunch of them. The year before, I passed 3 emergency election bills, and former Republican Governor Hogan allowed 2 of them to become law without his signature. He was being a little political with that. It's fine, they're law. But one of them, and arguably one of the most important, he vetoed, quite unexpectedly and irresponsibly. Maryland is the only state in the country that specifically in our law, in our regulation, forbids the processing, counting of mail-in ballots until 2 days after Election Day. Now, when our mail-in ballots comprised of 4 or 5% of our ballots, no big deal. Unless it's a squeaker, like David Blair and Mark Elridge, unless it's really close, that's not a factor. But when we're talking about an all mail-in ballot, as we had last year's primary, when we're talking about 25, 30, 35%, and possibly more in the future, voters preferring to cast a mail-in ballot, it's insane that we can't start giving people any indication of who won. Election night, we all tune in. We're checking our webs, and then on the websites, we're checking TV, radio to see whether our party or our candidate won. It's crazy, and feeds the election deniers and the conspiracy theorists. What are they doing? How come they're taking so long? Clearly someone's stuffing the ballot box, right? In Maryland, in Montgomery County specifically, it took over a month to get our primary election results certified. That's nuts. That's insane. We're used to getting them election night. So I passed it again. It passed overwhelmingly. Governor Moore was very happy to sign it, and that's a great thing. One of the other bills that I sponsored and passed, we had an election administrator, who's been in the office for 26 years, I think. I've been sparring with her for 26 years, I think. I appreciate dedicated public servants, but she doesn't get technology, she doesn't collaborate, she doesn't cooperate, she doesn't communicate with legislators or our local boards of elections. She's been a real challenge. So, former president, this is probably a longer story, but it's a little bit of an inside baseball thing that you political insider types or fans might be interested in. So, former President Mike Miller put something in the law books to specifically protect her from being fired. I am not kidding. It is specific language in just the election code that made it impossible to fire her, because there was a real desire to make a change. And she wasn't changing, and we couldn't change her. So I sponsored a bill this year with the president's permission, the new, not so new anymore, but President Ferguson's permission, that specifically just added brackets to the Miller language and just deleted the language that should never have been added in 2005. Now, it was in my gap time, my 12 years, because if he had tried when I was there, I would have thrown a fit. But anyway, all it did is remove that so that the election administrator could be hired or fired like any other state employee, for quality and not for politics, not for backroom deals, not for whatever. So, it took a while. I filed the bill. The bill passed unanimously in the House of Delegates. And we didn't say the Fire Linda Lamone bill, because that's too icky. But everyone kind of knew what that was. Passed unanimously in the House, and only 2 dissenters in the Senate. It was very clear, it's time. Please retire. Thank you for your service. Bye-bye. We need someone new. So, she got the message. She announced her retirement. And just last week, we got unanimous approval from the Board of Elections for the person I thought was just going to be the most supremely ready to run our elections, Jared DeMarinis has worked at our State Board of Elections. He is everything that Linda wasn't. Collaborative, communicative, and just savvy on technology and all that. He's going to be terrific. So Linda's last day is August 31st. Can't come sooner. Jared's first day is September 1st. And you'll see good things here. The Dobbs case on abortion, I went directly down to the Supreme Court to join a lot of others protesting, because I think that my body, that I should control my body, and that the Supreme Court, the governor, the legislature, nobody should tell me when, and any of us, when and where and how, and we can talk about death with dignity also afterwards. We'll get to that. Make sure someone asks about that if I forget. Last year we passed strong abortion rights legislation. This year we went even a step further, and it will be on the ballot next year. It'll be as a constitutional amendment to literally put it in our Constitution. So regardless of what some future court might do, Maryland will be a safe haven for Marylanders or for anyone visiting here. And we also protected women coming from other states who are fleeing places like DeSantis country or Abbott country or whatever in Florida and Texas, but we really want women to have the options to decide their own reproductive choices. Cannabis, you all voted for it. It was on the ballot last year to legalize adult use cannabis over 21. I was a co-sponsor of medical marijuana, which I still strongly support. I'm not the biggest fan of cannabis, but it's happening elsewhere, and in a couple of weeks, it will be legal in Maryland. So I had two floor amendments. The chair was very clear, there will be no amendments on the floor that are accepted. Do what you want, but they're all going to get rejected. Is it tough? I still want to stand up. I want to make the case for my colleagues. I want to put pressure on. I want to have the press pay attention to it. So I had two amendments. One was about municipal government. The bill, as it came out of committee originally, said all of the tax revenues are going to go to the counties. And the counties can think about being nice to the cities if they want. It had the lamest language. And let's be clear, if there's an outlet in Gaithersburg, there will be loitering, there will be trash, there will be noise, there could be crime, there could be a lot of challenges. Gaithersburg would have to pay for it. So why should the county keep all the money? That made no sense to me. So I sponsored an amendment on that. And the other thing that I'm really concerned about is what I call DUID, driving under the influence of drugs. And I know you guys have heard me talk about this because I've done this for several years and trying to educate people. In every state, after they legalize cannabis, there is an uptick in people driving impaired. And there are serious injuries and deaths as a result. And there is technology. You all know if you drive while drunk, you know there's a breathalyzer. Well, there is new technology, not so new anymore, that's basically, think about a Q-tip, and it swabs the inside of your cheek and your mouth, and they put it in a little device, and a couple minutes later, like 3 to 5 minutes later, it prints out a list of, is there cocaine, methamphetamines, opioids, cocaine, methamphetamines, cannabis. There's a panel of drugs that they can test for. And we just have to get impaired drivers off the roadways. So working on that. So it's going to become law. We will see how it goes. And I really hope that I'm not back here in a year or two saying, told you so. Because I would be devastated I'd love to be wrong. Listen, let me just say that. Education, implementation of our 10-year blueprint for public education, which I work very closely on as vice chair, and Governor Moore is all in. He put a bunch of new money. Unfortunately, our superintendent of education has been really slow on implementation, and so actually his contract is up, and there are conversations about whether his contract will be renewed. And Governor Moore has put some new people on the State Board of Education. We mean business. We want our our high schools are, preparing our students for the future. We want our elementary schools making sure that they give kids the greatest start. Our middle schools to help guide them. We've got to make sure we're amping up our schools, and that takes funding, training, and all that. Yeah. Some of you might have helped with your grandkids' savings for college. And some people started at childhood, at toddlerhood, at babyhood, investing, because higher education is expensive. There were two different kinds of funds. One of them is fine, one of them became a hot mess. And so we passed a law that shifts the focus to our state treasurer to fix it. Priorities are going to those who have students starting college this fall, next fall. Those who aren't for 10 years, there's time. But it's a problem, and it was horrible hearing the family stories. My child, who was getting ready to go to school at this fancy place, once we got the reality, he or she had to go to this other much less expensive place or take a gap year and all that. So the government was there to help, not to mess up someone's educational future. The environment, that we're continuing to work on climate issues, electric vehicles, charging station, wind power. There were a lot of bills that we passed this year. And I should say, actually, I had the picture with Governor Moore and Lieutenant Governor Miller, but they had a package of 10 bills, which is a lot, and they were big bills, and all 10 passed. And we amended, we tweaked some, but that's an extraordinary record and probably historic. And so some of those were environmental bills. I think you know that I am often called the senator for the nonprofit sector, and I'm very proud of that. My colleagues say all the time, what are we going to do to help our small businesses? What are we going to do to help our small businesses? Yes, and our nonprofits. So I always have to be there and say, yes, and what about the nonprofits? How are we going to help our nonprofits? So sometimes that's a quick amendment, sometimes it's its own bill. So in 2022, I had 3 bills for the nonprofit sector. They all passed unanimously in the Senate, and they all died in the House, which was really frustrating. So this year, brought all 3 of them back. 2 of them became law. So that's good, and I'm going to tell you briefly what they are. In 2017, I created a fund called NIMBLE, the Nonprofit Interest-Free Micro Bridge Loan. So if you're a nonprofit, got a federal, state, county, or municipal government grant or contract, and they were taking a while to give you the money, you could get up to $25,000, low bar to entry, to make sure that you have the resources to get the job done or to replenish your budget. I had testimony from one who actually had to get a second mortgage on her personal home in order to make payroll because government was so delayed. That's ridiculous, disrespectful, ineffective, inappropriate, whatever other adjective. So that there was now starting to be a waiting list because it was such a big problem. So we got another $1 million added. We had a waiting list of, I think, 18 organizations that were pending. So we're going to address the waiting list and get the word out about that. Another bill that I passed that the governor signed into law is what I call prompt payment parity. Again, last year we passed a bill about paying small businesses quickly. They didn't want to include nonprofits. I had my other nonprofit bill, so we're going to make sure that nonprofits get paid quickly from state government. The third one, which I'm going to continue to work on, and I also established a national legislative nonprofit caucus, and I'm speaking at a national conference about nonprofits in August. I'm really excited about that. I want to swap ideas. Here's what we did in Maryland. What did you do in Montana? What did you do in Connecticut? Let's figure out and learn from each other. But the third one I called GREEN. It's an acronym: Green and Renewable Energy Efficiency for Nonprofits, something like that. And it's a revolving loan fund for the food pantry, the battered women's shelter, the theater, to put solar roofs or get geothermal or wind power, whatever is appropriate, but they need to put their money towards their mission. So they come with 10% of the money, 10% of the cost. This fund would provide 90%, let them install, save money, do their piece towards reducing their carbon footprint, and then they would repay it really quickly with the savings in their energy bills. So that was really great. Jamie Raskin loved that idea so much when I told him 2 years ago that he got it added to the federal budget, but we're still working on it here. Healthcare, Maryland is 50th in the nation in wait times for emergency rooms. That's insane. Part of the problem, a big part of the problem, is a shortage of healthcare staff, personnel. So my bill got passed, signed into law, to make sure that people who we have educated, who are qualified, are able to get licensure for healthcare, whether it's a home healthcare aide, a nurse, a doctor, a veterinarian, regardless of immigration status. It brings linguistic and ethnic diversity and helps us address our crazy long waiting room time. Transgender people, better access to health care without discrimination. I continue to work on what I call gas price gouging. You've heard me talk about this for many years. And so sometimes, like my styrofoam ban, I couldn't get it done statewide, so I went county by county. This way, Montgomery County, I went to the county council. They passed unanimously. The county executive signed it into law. It's going into effect. And I have reached out to council members in Prince George's County, Baltimore County, Frederick County, and Baltimore City. And I think more and more there's going to be a tipping point if we can get it passed elsewhere. The sign that you see, the big sign that you see, will be the sign that you pay if you're using debit or credit, and not the bait and switch of getting charged an extra nickel, dime, 25 cents sometimes. It's really annoying. Local projects, as always, we brought money back for schools and priority projects. I just found out a couple weeks ago that the Maryland Municipal League gave me their very prestigious Municipal Superstar Awards. I was excited about that. We give out senatorial scholarships, and I just spent 2 hours today on Zooms notifying the winners of my Kagan Senatorial Scholars, who we are giving tens of thousands of dollars to for undergrad or graduate courses. So make sure that folks you know about it. It's undergrad or graduate, and all the information's on my website. So many things you guys probably know about. You know that Kumar is the new Public Service Commission commissioner, and while I'm sad to see him go, he had an extraordinary career of 32 years in the General Assembly, and is my friend, and I'll still get to work with him. And my good friend, our council member, Ryan Spiegel, Gaithersburg council member Ryan Spiegel, was just voted the other night to be recommended to the governor to be Kumar's successor and become our new delegate. So, Ryan. There were 14 people who applied, and there was a lot of passion, a lot of ideas, and a lot of talent, but they made the right choice, and I'm pretty thrilled. And so our new team looks like this. So almost delegate, not quite delegate yet. Ryan Spiegel is going to be joining Delegate Julie Polakovich-Carr, who I know was here recently, and Delegate Joe Vogel and me. Death with dignity. Good, I did put it in this slide. So first off, if the other thing that I'm going to ask you, in addition to 988, I'm betting that not all of you have subscribed to my podcasts yet. Kibitzing with Kagan. I post once each week, and this one is especially powerful if you care about death with dignity, end-of-life options, compassionate choice, whatever you call it. His wife, Brittany, got national news. It was on the cover of People magazine, and Right to Die is just something, again, for me, it's being pro-choice. It's my body. And so I was hopeful that we were going to vote on it and move it this year. We did not. But next year, because we had marijuana, we had abortion, we had a lot of big controversial issues, and I think the president was like, okay, it's a lot, let's hold. But I am hopeful that next year we are going to have it on the agenda, and hopefully we will pass it next year. So need you to be visible and active and communicate with us. Make sure that we hear from you. And you don't have to worry about me, but it's always nice to hear from you. But please be in touch. And I'd love to quote from any letters in our floor debate, in committees. I would love to be able to share your passion for the issue, because I know many of you feel strongly as I do. Hiring people, my podcast, again, it's a quick click on my YouTube channel. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts, so check that out. And I'm all over social media, so wherever you are, I am. I don't have Reddit, I don't do TikTok, but Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and obviously my YouTube channel and my website. So with that, I want to just do two more things. One is this. When I say that, this is just not a 3-month job, sometimes I pick up battles that I probably shouldn't invest in, but this is something I paid for out of my own pocket. It was not a campaign expense. And it says, I heart MSFA, firefighters. Do you know that Maryland, unlike 44 states, the District of Columbia, and the international organization, Maryland, MSFA is the Maryland State Firemen's Association. So they're still in the 1650s or something, I don't know. They haven't realized that in some places women are about half of the volunteer firefighters, and they should be renamed firefighters. Next week they're going to be voting at their annual convention as to whether to make the name change. 3 of our largest counties have women at the helm as chiefs, as fire chiefs, and they are still firemen. So hopefully we're going to get that changed. I don't know whether we will. And if any of you have moved in here remotely recently and don't have a Cheryl Kagan jar opener, it's handy dandy, and I did bring some. So see me afterwards if you haven't gotten one. And now, Ryan, do you want 60 seconds to just say a quick hi? Sure. Okay, and then we'll take questions. And Art has questions, and then I know a bunch of you do too. Well, fast. Why don't you take that?
Good afternoon. Is this on?
It's on.
It's on.
There you go.
How about that?
There you
All right. Otherwise, I was going to say I'm pretty loud. You all know that. I could have shouted across the room. But good afternoon, everybody. I think I know many of you already. I'm Ryan Spiegel. I'm your current Gaithersburg City Council member. It's been my absolute and deep honor to serve all of you and serve the Asbury community along with the rest of the city for the last 16 years. But I'm embarking on a new and exciting journey, as the Senator said. Very excited to continue serving and representing you in this new role. I just want to thank everyone for their support and well wishes. And for those who may not already know how to reach me, I'm going to put a stack of my soon-to-be obsolete Gaithersburg City Council business cards on the back table, but they have my personal cell phone on them, and that will not change. So please feel free to reach out to me with any issues that I can help with once I join the House of Delegates in a couple of weeks. We do have a city election coming up in November this year, and because my seat will become open, that will be an interesting election this fall. I hope you all will follow it and will participate and vote in that election. And feel free to keep my business cards now that they're collector's items. Thank you all so much.
Sell them on eBay. You have to know how extraordinary Ryan Spiegel is going to be in the House of Delegates. He's going to be amazing. He's the former president of the Maryland Municipal League, so he has relationships all over the state, and he's just going to be wonderful. I'm so excited. Okay. Art, do you want to start us off? So I want all of you to have questions if you've got them. We don't have time for all of you, but Art he warned me he's got 2 questions. So we'll start with him and then think about what questions you all have.
So for orientation of everybody here, Cheryl knows this already. The EPA recently published a new assessment of neonicotinoid pesticides. They found that these are threatening the continued existence of 200 endangered plant and animal species. We've already lost 89% or so of our honeybees. They say this will go to 100% if we keep using these in almost any form, including coating seeds with neonics, because once you coat a seed, any plant that grows from those seeds will kill honeybees. What? It's only 1/1000th of a gram. I know, but people need to understand the background.
And I'll tell them.
I appreciate that. So here in Maryland, we sort of took the lead by outlawing it for home use. Now in New York, they passed the Birds and Bees Protection Act that eliminates it almost completely from the state. Not 100%, it should be, because there's no safe level of these things. So that's question number one. Should we not now become the national leader again by going and completely eliminating a substance that has no safe level whatsoever?
You want me to answer each of them separately, or do you want to ask both?
Maybe people have tired of hearing me. I'll say the second one now.
Perfect.
There's an act called the Maryland Mandela Act to eliminate or severely restrict solitary confinement, which is an internationally known form of torture, and it is used, the judge never says, I'm sentencing you to 2 years of solitary confinement. It's completely up to the jail system. They can even extend your term of confinement beyond what the judge said. And we need to stop torturing people in Maryland. And this one particularly, the article that I read particularly pointed out this is being used against trans people and many other people, of course. So those are my two questions. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you. So I hope you all know Art Milholland because he's an extraordinary advocate. He comes down, he's in touch, he calls, he writes, he's wonderful. And as always, I think I can say always, or virtually always, we're in alignment. And neonicotinoids, we were at the forefront in Maryland. A former colleague of mine, Shirley Nathan Pulliam, sponsored it and passed it. It turns out it wasn't tight enough, so I was floor leader and sponsor of making it even harder to get access to. But as Art said, it is, so if you go in and you're looking for a pesticide, you don't know that this brand versus this brand. Well, this brand is safe for the bees and other insects, and this one is deadly and has neonicotinoids in it. So in Maryland, what we did is take that one off the shelf, the deadly one off the shelf, and so you guys, if you're gardeners or something, are not going to be getting the deadly kind. You'll just be getting another brand. But if someone is a professional pesticide applicant or corporate person or whatever, they could get it. It was almost like with the condoms and the tobacco or something behind the counter. But the question is, can we make it even tighter and make it virtually or totally unavailable? So thank you for that. Solitary confinement is horrible. People lose their mental well-being. We need socialization. We need sunlight. The stories, the long-term implications are really brutal. And I have actually talked to the chair of the committee about that. It was sponsored by a former senator who got picked, one of the people who got picked to join the Moore Miller administration. So she sponsored the bill and then promptly left, and no one else picked it up. So I will check in with the chair about that, because it's bad enough that you're incarcerated, but it's supposed to be sort of cooling off period and penalties to society. It's not supposed to be cruel and unusual punishment, as this is. So thank you, Art. Yes. Microphone's back. Yes, great.
Thank you, Cheryl, for all your efforts. What you said about thank you. What you said about 988, yes. I think we're going to do some publicity on that campus-wide, not just our club, but campus-wide.
Yes,
that really needs to happen. What you mentioned about death with dignity, actually that bill is called Options in Dying, and it covers, and I would like all of you to please consider becoming advocates for that. Terminally ill patients who are mentally competent would be allowed to request a medication that would allow them to die. They have to be able to self-administer it, so it's not somebody coming along and killing you, but it is a final departure with dignity for some people for whom it is a very important issue. So thank you for pursuing that. my
Before you go to another one, let me just tell you that studies have found in other states that there are patients who get the medication and just having it and knowing they have the option is comforting to them. So they don't even necessarily want to take it, but they could, and they have it right there if ever it's really that time. And so that's really meaningful. Go ahead. Sorry.
that's dignity.
Yes, exactly.
And I just wanted to ask for some clarity. Maybe it was just me that didn't understand. Marijuana, recreational marijuana is about to become legal in Maryland on July 1st. But as you said, we do need to be able to assess whether a person is impaired by marijuana or other pharmaceuticals, just as it is possible to determine if someone is impaired by alcohol. So you said that there is technology available. Is there a move to require that? And talk a little bit about that.
Thank you for asking for clarification. So as I mentioned, DUID, driving under the influence of drugs, and I described the technology of like the Q-tip and all that. I've sponsored legislation having a pilot program because what if it's inaccurate? What if it doesn't work and I don't want to get arrested? And what if? And I smoked, marijuana, cannabis, 2 days ago and it's still in my system, or it could still be, no, it can't. It's really, so it's the levels, it's the engagement, and cannabis doesn't stay in your mouth for very long as a swab. There is really good science, and these tests are being used in a lot of other jurisdictions, not in Maryland yet, but there is an openness to trying it, just haven't gotten it through legislatively. So it is something that, now at some point we're going to wait for the data. And then, as I said, I don't want to say I told you so, but if I told you so helps us get the bill passed, that is what I am ready to do. I've been talking about this a lot. It's a problem.
You mentioned both cannabis and gun. You mentioned both.
What's your name, sir?
Winston Davis.
Hi, Winston.
You mentioned both cannabis and guns. I recently heard John McCarthy complain that recent legislation by the state legislature makes it more difficult for him to get guns out of cars. Apparently because the officer cannot search the car if he smells cannabis in the car. Is that correct?
Thank you. There was a bill in the final minutes of session. It was truly like within the last hour before we adjourned at midnight on the 90th night. And it was about odor. It was one of the hardest votes that I've had to cast during my tenure, because on the one hand, I'm really focused on impaired driving, and I don't want impaired drivers on the road. On the other hand, we've all seen too many times how racial bias exists too often in our police departments. Oh, I think I smell weed in your car, sir. I'm gonna pull you over. I'm gonna pull you out. I'm gonna look in your car. You're totally innocent, but I don't know, I smell it. Who's gonna say that I didn't? I'm a sworn officer of the law. Like, if I'm a sworn police officer and I say I smell it, so it's a problem. I suspect that's something we're gonna revisit, but I really struggle because I hate impaired driving and I hate racial bias, which is the bigger evil. So I waited and waited and waited, and it was a tie vote, and I waited, and people were giving speeches, and I finally decided to go on protecting racial bias. But I wasn't happy about it.
People also hate having guns on the street.
Oh, 100%. There are a lot of challenges with all of this. I suspect that's an issue that will come back again. But right now, there's an appropriate level of awareness, sensitivity, and eagerness to do something about avoiding, not creating further opportunities for racial bias. As much as we'd all like to think or hope that we live in a colorblind society, we don't. And so, rather sort of, it was a really hard call for me. I was not happy to be faced with that. And so I'm hoping that we can figure out something that protects drivers, regardless of their race, and yet allows police officers, good police officers, to do their jobs and keep our roadways safe. So thank you for the question, Winston. Other questions?
Regarding
What's your name, please?
Doris,
Doris.
regarding what you said about the shortage of healthcare workers in
Yes.
Maryland,
Yes.
is anything being done or considered to pay for education of the worker? Then we have them having an obligation to work in the state for X number of months or years.
I love the idea. I don't think that's something we've done yet. There is a commission that passed the Senate and it died in the House in the final minutes. I don't know if you guys heard about the last 15 minutes in the House of Delegates. The Republicans did, and I don't want to use the word insurrection because that's January 6th and that's violence. It was not violent, but it was disrespectful, inappropriate, loud, stopping all business. And there was a stack of bills that all they needed was one more quick vote and they would have gone to the governor. And that was among the bills that got killed. I was just having lunch with the Senate sponsor yesterday, and it's very disappointing. So we need to come up with creative ideas like that. I will pass that on to her and see if that's something she's thought about. So thank you. Thank you for the question, Doris. Yes.
Casey Dildine. Oh, Casey Dildine. I'm going back to pesticides. Do we know if Albright is using a safe pesticide here at Asbury?
I don't know, but I think we can find out from Michelle Potter. That's a great question. I was in touch with her today, so she's the best, by the way. I'm sure you all know her, I'm sure you all love her. But if there's any doubt, she is very widely respected and known around the county and around the state. She's terrific. She is right now on the Eastern Shore at a Leadership Maryland experience, retreat, building relationships around the state and learning from others. Yes?
My name is Mary Jean David. I have an add-on to Doris's question. Is there anything being considered to be done or being done to help civil servants and general service workers to live where they work?
Great. So, so that is a COVID question. There's so many implications about that. And thank you for focusing on government workers because they are too often, it's kind of like our 911 specialists. They're taken for granted unless they mess up. But mostly they're invisible and people just condemn bureaucracy, the bureaucrats and all that. And most of them are smart and hardworking and committed to serve us. So one of the many really inexcusable might be a little strong, but not by a lot. One of the really bad choices that former Governor Larry Hogan made in his Republican-ness thing was he decimated our state government. And if somebody retired after 30 years in the government or whatever, he left the position vacant and didn't hire this new thing and left a position vacant. And then when COVID hit and people said, where's my unemployment check? Or I need help with this healthcare thing, or I'm having problems with my insurance, or I'm having problems. There weren't people there to answer the phone, to solve the problems. And so we have sort of extra access sometimes, and we have a portal and a person, and we've got sort of And so if any of you have problems with state government, don't hesitate to reach out to us, because rather than you being on hold for 3 hours, and seriously, we heard stories that were just so awful. It's like, I can send one email or one phone call and I can probably get that fixed. But so Governor Moore is really focused on rebuilding state government and making sure that it is flourishing. And something I didn't talk about, which is really exciting, he, and you all may remember from his campaign, he talked about a service year option for young people. And after they graduate from high school, or within 3 years of graduation, or a GED, a general equivalency degree, they could sign up for, get selected for a 1-year service option. And so whether they're working in environment, in public safety, in a classroom, at a nonprofit, serving hungry people, whatever it is, wherever their passion is, they get paid, they get job experience, and they learn professionalism, all the things. And then at the end, hopefully they'll get hired, or they'll have opportunities, or they'll have a better focus for their education if they decide they want to pursue higher education. So there are things, so he created a new cabinet level department, which is the Department on Service and Civic Innovation. And the cabinet, again, you guys have to go to my YouTube page, and please just, it's one button, click subscribe. My Kibitzing with Kagan, my weekly podcasts, which you can watch or listen to, I used to do them with legislators or advocates or nonprofit leaders. Since adjournment, I've been doing them with cabinet secretaries. And the one I think for next week is going to be the Secretary of Service and Civic Innovation. And he's just extraordinary. Vista, Peace Corps, just creative, problem solver, energy that makes me look like a wallflower, and I'm pretty high energy, right? He's wonderful, and the ideas that he has and the plans that he has for moving forward they're very exciting. And Maryland is the first state in the nation to have this program. So we are trying to rebuild, he is trying to rebuild state government, pay them more. He has passed an executive order to pay folks more. In terms of living near where they work, teleworking helps with some of that because people can work from home depending on their job. There's some jobs that obviously you can't do that with, but that is a conundrum for society.
Thank you. That all sounds really excellent. I'm thinking of teachers and policemen and women. No teleworking there.
No.
Librarian.
Healthcare workers, librarians, absolutely. There's some places, and Montgomery County is an expensive place to live.
Be able to afford
Yes.
to live.
Affordable
where they
housing.
work.
Here's the problem. I've worked on affordable housing issues, not just as a legislator, but as an advocate. I worked on a couple of projects, and there was a project in 2 projects I worked on in downtown Rockville. And you all have heard the phrase NIMBY, not in my backyard.
Right.
And some of those folks came out, I don't want those people living near me. It was like, teachers, librarians, are those people? And they make them sound scary and dangerous and different from me, as opposed to, that could be my niece. That could be, my local librarian or shop worker or something, server at my favorite restaurant. It's frustrating. Things have gotten better, and they've gotten better in Montgomery County. And as I said, I was speaking at a place yesterday, but it's been a process. In some neighborhoods, it's hard to get people close to the school, close to the library, close to where they would serve. So thank you for the question, Reggie. Incremental. Sometimes it's incremental. Okay, this is an interloper question.
My name is Scott Weber. I'm indeed a long-term friend of Asbury, and with no disrespect to the beautiful community that is here, could you speak to activities going on in Indianapolis as far as aging in place, both the ability to keep people in their homes with the physical modifications of buildings, but then also for caregivers and being able to take care of people in their homes so they can stay there potentially for the rest of their life?
It's a great question. It's an important policy. I'm not aware of anything that we've done in recent years on that. I think it's more of a county initiative than it is a state initiative at this point. But when I kibitz with the Secretary of the Department of Housing and Community Development, I will add it to my question list. Yes, I think this might be our last question.
Hi, I'm Pat Johnson, and in line with the last question, what's
Pressure's on.
being done to supervise nursing homes? And I see a big neglect all over, from the national government to the state government to institutions that have them, and it's really quite concerning for, I believe, most of us in here.
100%. Thank you, Pat. Thank you for the question. This is where I'm going to quote the TSA. If you see something, say something. If you know of something, if you have a friend or relative who feels like there is abuse or neglect or something that's inappropriate, we can't do anything about it if we don't know about it. So there are regular inspections, but we all know sometimes that, before Aunt Bertha comes to visit you, you're going to vacuum the house a little bit better, and you're going to scrub the toilets a little more thoroughly because you want it to look pretty, right? So before an inspection, maybe they pretty things up. I actually had an experience in my own family that was quite disturbing, and I made questions. I made a trip over there, and I had warned them that this was not a friendly trip. They said, "Oh, come and see us," and I said, "You sure you want me to do that? Okay." And I came and I had notes and so sometimes there needs to be accountability, visibility. There are agencies, there are inspectors, but saying, look over there when the nursing home wants you to look over here because this is where it's great and here's where it's not. Anything that you've got that you can pass along would be helpful. I'm afraid I can't do a lot better than that. Yes, ma'am. Okay, now we have the last question.
This will be the last question.
This will be the last question until the July meeting and the August meeting, right, Maria? The July meeting, like you can follow up with the July meeting and the August meeting? Oh, there's not a July meeting or an August meeting. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, Karen Thomas. I just want to follow up on Pat's question. Maybe you could look into something for us. There are supposed to be ombudsmans, and they are muns. It's not a...
Ombuds people.
Well, anyway, officially ombudsman in each county who are supposed to be available to the nursing homes in the county. It's our understanding there really has not been a functioning person in the Montgomery County role, and we really do need that. If you could somehow check into it for us, that would be very helpful.
I can totally look into that. And Scott, if you weren't live streaming, I don't know whether I was...
We can cut it out.
There are many reasons why I had a different choice for county executive. It's a perfect example. My choice lost by a handful of votes for the second time. I hear stories about failures in county government. I did my best. So, we've got 3 more years of Mark Elrich. I was hoping for David Blair, yes. So, in any case, sorry to end on a downer political note, but I'm happy to look into it because sometimes when you prod folks who aren't getting things done, they'll step up. But please make sure next county executive election, you're paying really close attention, really close attention. It's important and it affects every single thing in our world. It affects how we implement our state laws here in the county and what the city is doing that is in partnership with the county. There's just so much. There's a synergy and we all need to work together, but we need good partners. So thank you, Karen, for the follow-up. So with that, we're going to adjourn, and Maria's probably going to remind you that there's no meeting in July or August. But I love being here with you all. It's such a joy. I love your questions. I love your engagement. If you did not have one of my letters, on your chairs when you came in. I have more of them. If you need a jar opener, please don't, they're kind of expensive, so if you already have one, please don't get another one. But if you need one, come and snag one from me. And please stay safe, stay well, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Cheryl. You're always lively and you're always full of issues. And this time you brought visuals. That's extra. Thank you. No meeting in August. No meeting in July.
All right.